Well, let me tell you a little about me and my experience. As I said, Darren Lutchner, and I'm Melbourne born and bred. I'm married up with 2 grown-up kids, and I also have King Charles Cavalier, who is out walking at the moment, so he doesn't bark during my talk here. I'm also a science fiction junkie, all the famous ones and some of the not so famous ones. I've been in technology so long that DOS used to be an operating system and not what it is now, a denial of service. I've spent many years implementing Microsoft Dynamics NAV, or now it's called Business Central, and Microsoft 365 for Business. And this year I started consulting with small to medium businesses in Microsoft 365 implementations. So people always ask me what I mean by small to medium businesses. I've tended to say a small business is at least 5 people and a medium business is up to 300 people. But according to the OECD in Europe, medium businesses are considered up to 250 employees, while in the USA it's up to 500 people. And small businesses are lower than 50 employees. And there's micro businesses that are less than 10. So really, there's no hard definition of the size of what these size of businesses are. As I was creating this presentation, Microsoft rebranded Office 365 for Business and is now calling it Microsoft 365 for Business. And also, don't be confused with another product range called Microsoft Dynamics 365. The Dynamics 365 are a great suite of business applications that seamlessly integrate well with Microsoft 365. So these are the basic suite of Microsoft 365 applications. All your classic favorite applications are there, but now there's also some really powerful new ones. And some of my favorites are the following. So you probably know that Teams natively manages chat, video conferencing, files management, and calendar. I see it as much more than that. It's also a user's one-stop shop for them to do their job by focusing on their responsibilities within their team or department. That's because it integrates so well with many Microsoft and non-Microsoft applications. A good old SharePoint is that in the last couple of years has had a major redesign and is now easier to use than ever before. It's great for managing shared files, but my favorite feature in SharePoint is creating a SharePoint list. And I also like Power Automate. It's an online workflow service that automates actions across the most common apps and services. Watching a good workflow gets me a little giddy. A little bit of a brag now. I once set up a flow to read an SQL Server database log table, and every time a critical type record was created, it sent an email warning to the technical team and to myself. When I saw the email, I pestered the technical team with, "Did you see that? Did you see that?" Of course, there are many additional fully integrated add-ins and other services can also be used with Power Automate. So let's define what a Microsoft 365, what I consider Microsoft 365 implementation is. When I first approach a customer and ask, have they implemented Microsoft 365, they usually tell me the following. Oh yes, our third-party IT support company took our on-site network files and moved them to OneDrive or Teams, and now we can't find them or share them like we used to. Or the other one is, yes, IT moved our on-site SharePoint to the cloud, and now all our links are broken. Or one of my favorites is, yes, we have, and now I keep getting this Teams program pop-up every day. I don't know what it is, and it just gets in the way. So as I mentioned, Microsoft Office was traditionally a base set of standalone applications, which was Word, Excel, Outlook, etc. So implementing Microsoft 365 includes solutions for managing teamwork and communication, process automation, file storage sharing, improving security, multiple devices, and very much more. So if you like, implementation is not about just installing the software. It's re-engineering your people, your processes, and the business systems to improve your business practices. Microsoft 365 is a suite of very powerful and flexible solutions. So there's not one single way to implement. You can always use the standard implementation approaches such as waterfall or agile or variations of these. But I want to focus on 2 styles of implementation. One is fake it till you make it, well, you might be able to do that. Or the other one is plan, prioritize, design, and deploy. So with Fake It Till You Make It, it is where the organization has had Microsoft 365 installed, but there are no formal plans to utilize it to improve the business. So in other words, it's a business as usual and will be rolled out informally if people feel they need to. This implementation is usually mostly done by word of mouth. For instance, someone may talk with those individuals that have started using Teams. When it comes to training, some people may learn from the internet videos or MSL help online. The benefit of this type of implementation is you might get some quick, easy wins, and this is a cheap way of implementing. For instance, you may pick up on chat and some other features easily. However, because no one has taken the time to understand what features are available, they're not using the power of Microsoft 365, and therefore there is very little immediate value add. My family loves Lego Masters on TV at the moment. As a person who strives for successful implementations, I secretly like it when the contestants' models blow up or smash on the floor. Although I do feel sorry for the contestants when that happens, but truthfully, I absolutely love seeing the final builds. So as a little sample, I asked my son the other day to build a car with Lego in 3 minutes with no other instructions or prep time. And here's how he went. Click there. You can see that the result is a vehicle that's a mess of brick types and colours. I see Lego build very much the same as Microsoft 365 implementations. You can just start building with no planning. The key to success for both scenarios is the same. So you've got to scope out what you can achieve within the time and budget you have and don't veer from it. You can prepare an approach and design to implementing before you start the build. In Lego Masters, sometimes the brickman comes up to a contestant during the build and says, "Are you sure you should have approached the build that way?" In other words, maybe the contestants focused on aesthetics and spent little time on the structural design. This can be the same with building Microsoft 365. Perhaps your planning is focused on storing and sharing documents in the cloud, but it runs a mess of files because you've not set up the rules of name conventions and locations storage. Or communication practice. The other thing is test before you release. In Lego Masters, bricks fall off in the build if the build is completed in the last few seconds and a test or final review is not done. Now, I want to show you the sort of small Microsoft 365 implementation demo using the fake it till you make it style and what are the outcomes. Another show I'm watching during isolation, I'm sure a lot of people are watching TV during the isolation, is Billions. So in this demo, I'm going to use Axe Capital and some Billions cast as users. Axe Capital have recently upgraded their systems from internal network-based systems to Microsoft 365 Business Cloud storage. I want to focus on a key set of files they store to manage with their dealings with the Attorney General. Before Axe Capital upgraded, documents were stored in multiple places. So one of the characters, Bobby Axelrod, had it on his local PC. Another character, Wags, had some and different documents on their PC. And there was a shared network drive with, again, same and different network documents stored there. Now, when they upgraded to Microsoft 365, they just replicated the document management setup as they had before. So now, Bobby Axelrod has individual PC, but now he's added that to his OneDrive, and Wags the same, also on their PC and added OneDrive. And Teams now replaces the shared drive they had before. In this case, they may still have some issues and have added no value to the organization. So they've still got duplicate files. There's no single stored location or version control for those documents, and they're probably still sharing those documents via email attachments. And I'm sure they've got security issues because documents are flying all over the place and they haven't got a clue where they are. So some of my suggested solutions would include, unless you've got documents that are your own personal ones, then store and manage them in Teams. And you can sync them locally if you want to. Remove copies of the individual PC OneDrives. There needs to be one place you can keep them all. And make sure that security is set adequately so those pesky day traders can't see them. Now, I want to talk about the other approach, which is to plan, prioritize, design, and deploy what you're implementing. Of course, this is the option I prefer. As per my last slides, a couple of don'ts here. So don't start rolling out the solution first. We now have Teams and let's start using it. That's what people think. Don't try to make your existing work practices fit into the new solution by trying to put the old square peg in the round hole. Instead, start by learning what Microsoft 365 can offer. Have a think about the sort of improved work practices you could achieve. There's plenty of online resources out there to help you out. Once you've got a bit of a grasp of the solutions, then you should plan and prioritize. So brainstorm a list of current processes and practices that could benefit from the implementation. For instance, as per my X Capital example, you may identify that you want to improve collaboration of the Attorney General documents. You may also want to add communication practices within the team that work with the Attorney General. You should prioritise in order which are important and can be most beneficial. You also might want to group processes up by business area or logically making sense. And identify some easy quick wins. These will give some ongoing confidence in the business and teams. If the list is quite sizable, you might want to implement this section in phases or sprints. Once you have a scope in place, you should build a schedule of tasks to implement. Make sure within that schedule you have access to the people you need. Then you can start drilling down on design and operational rules. This design would include naming conventions for teams, files, and communication in general, documenting new processes and procedures for the new system, configuring the solution, for instance, creating teams and channels, migration of documents to appropriate sites, identifying and training a system administrator. They'll have to manage your users and set up your rules and security. Building apps and any integration you might need. Building the management of data. You may have to update usernames, files, internal address books. Prepare a training plan and documents and train users. Creating a user acceptance test plan based on the design and have the user carry out the testing. It's important that they understand and are comfortable to deploy to production, deploy to live and ongoing support. If you have future phases or sprints, then you may want to plan them and implement those next. So after my son built the last Lego car, I gave him some instructions, this time to build a red car with a driver that aesthetically looks good. This is what he came up with this time. Just press the play and it should work. Here we go. So you can now see the improvement even with a little bit of planning. And he's a happy little driver. I was recently asked by a client to come up with a solution in Microsoft Teams that allowed them to manage mini project schedules. At that stage, they didn't give me many solid requirements. So to help identify the approach we should take, I created a proof of concept. The objective of this proof of concept was to explain the different potential solutions within the Microsoft 365 suite and show the strengths and weaknesses of each. Now I'll give you a quick overview of this proof of concept. I've created a Microsoft team. Within the team, I created a number of channels with 4 different project solutions, which I want to show you, and I'll go through them one by one. The first type is a straightforward Excel spreadsheet. The file is stored in the channel's file system. Whilst here, I have created a tab that opens a standard Excel template. Simple and easy to set up and use. Great. You can even share this spreadsheet, and if required, others can update. However, if you want to get a bit fancy with functionality like assigning and tracking tasks and managing resources, it's quite difficult with just a spreadsheet. And so this approach is probably good for very small projects, probably with 1 or 2 people. Another option is to use Microsoft Planner. Again, this one is good for some simple projects, and you can even drive some automated processes using Power Automate, like sending an email as a task that's assigned to someone. However, it's also a little limited. If you like to run projects using the Kanban methodology, then using Trello may be the way to go. Of course, Trello also integrates well with Teams. Here's a style using SharePoint lists. I like this because SharePoint lists are very flexible in the information you can use. For instance, I've added gates and RAG status. Using Power Automate is great at updating fields or sending email follow-ups. Exporting to Excel and reporting is also an advantage. But the issue here is if your project has several levels for tasks, then it's difficult to manage in SharePoint. I'm no SharePoint expert, and I'm sure there's a good solution for project management, but you need to know what you want before you dive in. And my final option is using Power Apps connected to an Azure SQL Server backend. This option is very flexible. However, it needs some technical knowledge and it can take some time to implement. This is a good option if you have an existing SQL Server solution and you may want to integrate it with. And of course, there are many other options to use, and many integrate into Microsoft 365 nicely. If a business dives straight into any available option without knowing how it meets their requirements, both for now and the future, it could cost them dearly. So planning is essential. So in summary, implementing Microsoft 365 for business involves the following. So identifying what you consider small to medium businesses are, deciding what the approach will be. Would you just dive straight in and take the risk of seeing where this leads? Or would you take a more considered approach to get the most benefits from the solution? Whatever approach you take, I hope your journey is a good and fun one and are successful in improving your business practices.